Barioth is one of the top predators of the polar and alpine regions of the world of Monster Hunter, and as a permanent resident of such areas it possesses a number of adaptations, both outside and in, to make it one of the most surprisingly specialised monsters for its environment. But despite this, it also has a far-flung subspecies, the sand Barioth, as at home in the deserts as the original species is in the tundra. How do these individuals compare to their snowy cousins? And how do Barioth's adaptations influence its relationships with both man and other wyverns? Perhaps Barioth's signature feature are their large, amber-coloured tusks. Their distinctive appearance is likely due to the presence of iron, as seen in many rodent species but most famously beavers, as this helps them resist acid attack and makes enamel significantly harder. Both of these make for incredibly resilient teeth, with much less chance of decay. The enamel hardness may also help keep Barioth's tusks sharp too, which is pretty important when it needs them to acquire its daily bread. And in hunting, Barioth may use its teeth in a unique manner compared to other saber-toothed animals. The saber-tooths, or Machaerodont felids, were an odd bunch of cats, with many having much more bear-like builds than modern cats. Stouter limbs and plantigrade feet made them hugely powerful animals, but much slower ones too, with the reason likely being to better wrestle down large prey to dispatch it with a single swift bite. The favoured hypothesis for many right now is the canine shear bite, that smilodonts especially use their teeth to sever the major blood vessels in the throat of a restrained animal. Barioth does not seem to be built quite the same way. Out of all the pseudo-wyverns, it's Tigrex who is reported to be the most powerful, and is even specified to have incredibly robust forelimbs much more like a smilodont. And Barioth can't just start grappling and biting with other monsters without care, as whilst saber teeth are far stronger than initially thought, they handle stresses poorly from the side on, with saber-toothed skulls also being less adapted to withstand such stress too. The stresses that saber-teeth are exceptionally well suited to handle though are lateral ones, which is to say from above and below. Machaerodonts had high bite forces and could potentially even puncture bone with their saber teeth, and some fossil evidence suggests that this may be how they occasionally killed each other, with skull-puncturing stabs from their huge canines. This, in combination with Barioth's habit of diving from cliffs or flight, and slamming its tusks down with considerable force, suggests that maybe Barioth has used flight, speed and stealth in lieu of the super strong limbs to wrestle down prey. Barioth may make a single attempt on its prey and use the element of surprise to plunge its fangs deep into a vital area, before backing off to let it bleed out. Barioth may be the only pseudo-wyvern to keep its volant ability for this very reason. Normally it may prefer the cheaper method of a canyon, cave or cliff edge ambush, but when terrain doesn't allow it, Barioth uses flight to close the gap and set up the initial lunge, dropping out of the sky to attack. For most instances, Barioth may try to avoid costly struggles that could potentially break a saber. Much like a saber-tooth, its teeth are seemingly designed to kill large animals protected by thick fur and fat, but they may also play an important role in feeding as well. Barioth is said to be something of a specialist when eating, and prefers the nutrient-rich organs and energy-rich fat of its prey. And in fact, it may not eat much else on the carcass. This is potentially quite similar to a completely different saber-toothed animal, Thylassosmilus. The South American marsupial saber-tooth has a very different setup to the actual felid saber-tooths, and its skeleton is poorly adapted to run down and hunt prey. Rather, it's suggested it was a scavenger, and used its huge canine teeth to tear open the abdomen of dead animals, and then slurp out the organs from within, having a partially vaulted palate and reduced incisors to do this. Barioth may have a similar feeding behaviour, and use its great tusks to open fresh kills first thing to consume the viscera within. Unlike Thylassosmilus, Barioth still has its incisors, but this doesn't necessarily preclude organ feeding, and Barioth may even lose them with evolutionary time. Many animals also carry important fat reserves around their internal organs as well, and so Barioth may well get a complete meal from effectively hollowing out the carcass and feeding on the innards. For small kills, or the event of Barioth sharing a kill, they may use a sabertooth-like shearing method to feed and effectively scrape the subcutaneous fat deposits of prey. The bizarre serrations on the outer edge of the teeth may also assist feeding in this method, and may detach tissue from bone, or just generally shave pieces off for easier consumption. The unique feeding preferences of Barioth may well go deeper than just the teeth, and over time it may have caused genetic adaptations for this unique diet as well. Polar bears are well known for a diet of mainly seals, and of these they eat chiefly the blubber. As such, they have a number of genes helping them digest fat even better than protein, and to deal with very high-fat diets without suffering cardiovascular consequences. Whenever Monster Hunter gets a similar level of scientific development, the guild may see the same in Barioth. The organ preference may also impact Barioth further, and indeed, some predators like felids are unable to synthesize their own vitamin A, or taurine. This makes felids not just obligate carnivores, but obligate predators as well, and forces larger cats to hunt large prey to consume key organs for their vitamin content. Whilst they can meet their energetic needs from smaller prey, they still need a certain amount of larger prey for the organ content, or their immune system starts to fail, and they become highly susceptible to parasites and pathogens. It's unknown if Barioth's organ preference is as a result of this, or if Barioth may even be adapting in similar fashion to better digest organs. But such a strong dietary preference does cautiously suggest that Barioth may have some partial dependence on certain tissues, or a possible deficiency or inability to synthesize its own. Both of these behaviours, as well as morphology, likely limits Barioth considerably in carcass utilisation. The act of opening up a large herbivore carcass lets out all the heat, and causes it to freeze quickly in winter or high-altitude conditions. Possibly like some modern felids, most Barioth are both unwilling and unable to feed on frozen kills, and even ones that would eat muscle tissue may struggle to process it as the carcass becomes buried by snow. Despite their ability to puncture bone, they likely struggle to eat it, and in general are poor diurophages. Proportionally, a Barioth likely uses less of the carcass biomass than any other mountain or polar carnivore, and so Barioth kills may be richly utilised by other predators at any time of the year. Outside of rare instances of it usurping a fresh kill, Barioth also likely scavenge very rarely, with animals killed by non-violent ways providing little interest to them. Some exceptions to this may exist, and exceptionally old and large individuals known as frostfangs will apparently consume parts of frozen carcasses. It's also mentioned that frostfangs can survive in areas of low prey density, and it may be that this dietary adaptation and superior carcass utilization, combined with the extra fur, is what allows frostfangs to both initially survive and reach such advanced age. The frequency of such different gene expressions may vary with climate cycles in the world of Monster Hunter. Right now the planet isn't in an ice age, and so frostfangs may get comparatively less numerous in comparison to regular Barioth. In ice ages, and especially in the future of the hoarfrost in particular now the volcano is dormant, frostfangs may be selected for due to their better ability to process carcasses in deep winter. This specialism and dietary impact may make Barioth a high-profile animal for menageries, and revered in indigenous cultures in Monster Hunter. Lagombi and Blangonga fur is used for outdoor and/or luxury clothing, due to its incredible warmth and softness, but to denote rank and importance, Barioth fur is used. Whilst other wyverns can be fed on offal or scraps, or large numbers of pigs, chickens and other cheap livestock, Barioth's diet may mean it only accepts live or day-fresh prey of a certain size and fully intact. Any noble that can keep an adult Barioth healthy has a major flex to show how much resources they have at their disposal to feed it, and these factors may make it the king's wyvern. But despite such a potentially regal position among human cultures, Barioth receives no such reverence from their peers in the ecosystem where they have to fight tooth and claw like everyone else. But Barioth's unique dietary habits may mean it personally avoids tangling with other large monsters over kills at least. Unlike other carnivores and more similar to cheetahs, Barioth probably only feeds on each kill once, even if it's a large one, due to the fact it likely freezes entirely after the first big feed. The lack of caching or sleeping near kills ultimately reduces costly encounters with other carnivores, and much scavenging of Barioth kills is likely other predators coming across frozen remains. By creating reasonable amounts of carrion in such areas, Barioth may partially subsidize animals like Tigrex, Gosharag, and Ebony Odogaron, who all likely have a good sense of smell to detect it, and jaws or tools likely able to process bone or at least frozen muscle. But many of Barioth's chief competitors may not settle for just the frozen leftovers, and may be more than willing to confront Barioth for a fresh kill. So Barioth may use differences in habitats to protect itself, and its kill, depending on the season. This is something we see in mountain predators. Snow leopards will vary their movements in the alpine and subalpine regions of the mountains depending on the season, and they compete heavily with the woolly or Himalayan wolf, sharing a near-complete overlap in prey, but they reduce their competition by living in areas of different topographies, with the snow leopards preferring cliffs and rock faces, compared to the wolves' preference for more open areas. So initially, Barioth may be able to escape many of its competitors by also preferring such habitats. Tigrex may not mind broken terrain, and also occasionally uses such areas to ambush its prey. But rock faces, cliffs, and the summits of such mountains are much more effectively used by Barioth, who is a far superior climber and can also use flight to assist it further. Here they may even take a different prey such as Lagombi, a swift and wary animal that may also prefer steeper terrain for better sliding. If Tigrex gets the opportunity, it'd likely eat Lagombi as well, but the latter's sharp senses may well keep it safe for the most part. Competition may intensify seasonally, however. In the contrasting months, prey movements change, and then so will the movements of the predators that follow them. And in winter, snow leopards enter the subalpine areas inhabited by common leopards, which appear to negatively impact their movements. In other species too, conflict arises when boreal specialists are approached by their more generalist cousins. Red foxes predate Arctic foxes as climate change and human habitation allows them to move further north. When both predators are drawn to the same mobile food sources, conflict may occur, even with their habitat partitioning. It's unknown which season would cause the greatest conflict, as it's not clear how popo respond seasonally, but most herbivores typically head to lower-lying regions in winter, so the colder months may well cause a spike in conflict between the two wyverns. And as with the analogues here, the larger, more robust and more generalist species may likely dominate its more specialist cousin. This may be another evolutionary prompt for frostfangs, who may be true alpine specialists even among Barioths themselves. The aforementioned abilities of differing diet and cold resistance may help weather winters on the roof of the world, and they may show little seasonal movements to follow the bulk of the prey, instead staying in the peaks all year round. Their large size may also help withstand challenges from other seasonal visitors. A frostfang Barioth was once apparently seen to clash with a Velkhana, and other elders like Hushala Deora may seasonally use mountaintops to molt or attain minerals. So maybe only the largest, oldest and most experienced frostfangs can continue to hold their own against such stiff competition, in any season or extreme weather. Barioth likely don't have to worry about anthropogenic climate change, at least not for another 100 years or so. But they do still occupy climate-vulnerable areas in alpine and polar regions. In the event of natural climate cycles, however, their species may well be in a precarious spot, but Barioth as a whole do still have an ace up their sleeve for such occasions, and that's the sand Barioth. It's interesting to speculate just how many of original Barioth's adaptations sand Barioth may have modified to cope with arid life. For one, whilst animals usually have fat deposits around internal organs that Barioth will feed on anyway, this isn't quite the same as the huge deposits boreal animals like popo will naturally carry. Sand Barioth may still feed on organs first and preferentially, and in animals like Apsaros there's still plenty large game in the deserts to support them. but sand Barioth may also possess adaptations to eat and digest more muscle tissue as well. Juvenile bloss wyverns and Barioth may also provide additional large game for mothers with dependent subadult young to take as well. Sand Barioth also seem to use or express a different mineral for their tusks as well, giving them a darker colour than the signature orange of Mountain Barioth, and apparently they turn blue when fully polished. If the darker sabres and dietary changes sound familiar, it could be possible that Sand Barioth aren't a subspecies of all Mountain Barioth, but rather individuals with the unique Frostfang genotypes that were able to survive. If we come back again to the Ice Age theory, then many polar or mountain animals were likely much more widespread in the world of Monster Hunter, explaining the wide range of tigrex as well as subspecies like Copper Blangonga and Sand Barioth. Climate change then isolated various populations, and only the unique Frostfang individuals survived due to their comparative dietary flexibility, and then lost certain adaptations like the extra fur for desert life. It's also quite possible Sand Barioth may be genetically distinct enough that it's its own species, rather than a subspecies. All types of Barioth share their unique sabres though, and few species may be as dependent on signature aspects of their morphology as Barioth and their tusks. Even bloss wyverns with snapped horns or Blangonga with broken faces can still survive, even if their ability to function as a contributing member to their species has ended. But for a Barioth, broken tusks may well spell doom. Big cats are dependent on their large canine teeth to efficiently kill prey, and without them they can struggle to cleanly take down even small animals. Records show an adult tigress struggling to take down a large dog, and having such difficulty with big breeds that she started avoiding them in favour of taking smaller individuals. Old animals can often meet starvation this way, and such effects are likely perhaps even more pronounced in Machaerodont felids, who, unless social, may well have been up the creek without a paddle in the event of their sabres breaking. And so too for Barioth. Barioth may still be able to catch small prey to eat, but the cost of catching it versus the comparatively little fatty and organ tissue Barioth needs may mean this just prolongs the inevitable. It's unknown if Barioth's teeth grow continuously through their lives, but it's also irrelevant. A Barioth with its fangs drawn is living on borrowed time regardless, and this may also make them incredibly dangerous. Like other old or crippled predators unable to feed on their natural prey, Barioth may take to man-eating. Even if the animal is doomed, it can still inflict huge losses before succumbing to starvation, and may well take large numbers of people to try and take the edge off its hunger. Reckless hunters not finishing a job or ignorant guild members releasing crippled animals may unknowingly cause incredible destruction to local villages, and even in areas with elder dragons and other creatures of equal power, there may be no beast more dangerous than a tuskless Barioth. Barioth is one of the few monsters that we also have information on for its reproductive behaviour. The beginning of the process features Barioth's signature feature, its large tusks. Males display their tusks to a female, with size and shape and presumably colour being the deciding factors of whether she chooses him or not. Like a lot of bizarre courtship rituals, this may seem like a peculiar choice of how to choose a mate, but such things are often microcosms of behaviour important to the animal's life history, or function as billboards of the animal's health. A Barioth's tusks are vital to its success, and ones with small or deformed tusks can't be allowed to pass such genes down to future generations, and ones with insufficient iron content are likely to break earlier and this limit lifetime fecundity, another unwanted trait. After finding a sufficient male and mating, a certain amount of time later the female Barioth digs a maternity den to bear her young in, and this may be the reason for Barioth's icy spit. Again, the whole generating cold thing is pretty hard to rationalise, but suggesting it as a type of adhesive bile that snow sticks to works, and fits with Barioth's denning behaviour. Such a substance would help clump and compact snow together to make a more stable den, with less risk of cave-in. This can still be applied to Sand Barioth too, and maybe even more important there, as Sand Barioth digs such dens in the side of sand dunes, which would be a much looser substrate. Much like other snow-denning animals, Barioth mothers may be choosy about where they dig their dens, and prefer slopes with the deepest snowdrifts, with minimal wind chill and the longest sun exposure so both mother and cubs can bask and play in the sun, to conserve energy around the lair. Barioth dens likely provide good shelter, with the inner chambers likely being significantly warmer than the surrounding areas, and probably one of the more cleaner and comfortable monster nests. The frost sac of the Barioth may have also been developed in conjunction with some rudimentary form of crop. Barioth young are born altricial, and it's unlikely they follow their mother to kills in the first few weeks of life, considering their small size, vulnerability, the difficulty of the terrain, and the limited time to utilise each kill. So it seems much more likely that the mother returns after each kill, and regurgitates an energy-rich puree of fat and organ for the cubs to get them growing fast until they can follow her to kills. With their ineffectiveness as predators without their tusks, plus their inexperience as hunters, Barioth young will naturally be dependent on their mother. But to look at modern saber-toothed cats, we see that such specialist dental apparatus takes time to grow. Young Smilodon only get their fully erupted canines at roughly 3 years or so, which is a pretty long time to stay with their mother. Other animals with such specialised teeth also have pretty long periods of offspring dependency as well, with spotted hyenas also having an incredibly long nursing period for a carnivore their size, whilst the young animals properly grow their bone-crushing jaws. So it can be assumed that Barioth young stay with their mothers for some time until the tusks are fully grown. Fossils of Smilodon have also been found that are believed to be mothers with their large subadult young, and analysis of said fossils seem to show Smilodon grew quickly like a tiger, but stayed with their mother for prolonged periods like a lion. For a wyvern like Barioth, the sooner the young are bigger, the safer they are, but they also can't really leave their mother until the tusks are fully grown. So Barioth may have had similar growth rates to the Smilodon, and as a result, Barioth may have some of the highest parental investment of any wyvern, or indeed monster. It's one thing to care for 3 small dependent chicks who you can simply regurgitate food for in the den, but once the subadult Barioth begin to approach their mother's size, she'll be under tremendous pressure to find enough food. This is also a problem for mother tigers, who as said have young who grow quickly and male cubs are often larger than their mother before leaving. As such, female tigers will take the largest prey available in their range at surprising frequency, and will kill adult male banteng and even gar to keep her large litter fed. In the New World, this is likely what prompts predation attempts on Banbaro. Simply popo may not be enough for many mothers, and Banbaro provides a large meal with plenty of fat and organ to feed a family. Much like a tigress killing a gar, Banbaro are still risky targets that truly show the dedication of such mothers. In some cases in the Old World, though, a mother Barioth may potentially rope her cubs in to participate in the kill. Much like some other Machaerodont felids did with mammoths, she may try and go for one of the top prizes in the polar regions and attempt to take young gammoth. For mothers that learn this trick, they may only be able to do so with the help of her adult young, and for the sake of said young as well. Proboscidean hunting is well known for saber-tooths, and with the unique Homotherium being an occasional social killer of mammoth calves, such kills may occur in similar fashion for the Barioth family, with it taking all of them to restrain the gammoth youngster for the kill. Even with the required assistance, the mother is still the leader of the operation, and such behavioural specialisations are typically passed down the matriline. So the daughters of gammoth hunters may well remember and use such a trick to ensure their own offspring good forage at the end of their adolescence. As well as likely being forced to kill very large prey, if it's not numerous or available, mothers may have to kill with incredible frequency to keep the young fed. After all, in the final few months before leaving the mother, she will effectively have to find enough prey to keep 4 adult-sized Barioth fed. With their limited carcass processing as well, Mother Barioth will likely have to kill huge numbers of animals like popo, possibly averaging once or even potentially twice a day. Much like with Nagakuga, behaviours that are still natural processes can seemingly have alarming impacts on animal numbers in the area, that may concern guild members who believe Barioth have to be controlled to save the environment. Such an intense energetic demand can have a serious toll on the mother, and in some rare cases with wild felids, the mother has indeed perished at the cost of hunting for her near-adult offspring. With such a large and hungry brood, some devoted mother Barioths in especially harsh periods may also make the ultimate sacrifice to give their young the final push to maturity. So for my thoughts on Barioth, let's get the negatives out of the way first. And that I don't really like much about Barioth. One of the key things is his design. Saber teeth are perhaps the top-ranked appendage in creature designers slapping onto their creations without doing the appropriate research beforehand. And Barioth is no different. His small, short skull looks so woefully under-designed to accommodate his own teeth, with his tiny mandible being unable to extend past the point of his sabers. The way his cheeks also squash up into his eyes also make him look pretty goofy, and almost makes the sabers look a little fake, as if they've been artificially put in. I think actually taking cues from saber-toothed animals and giving them larger, stronger, more angular heads would have solved a lot of this, and maybe some of the flanges seen in some animals if you really wanted to make it prehistoric and out there. Some more felid traits would have been nice too, and giving him some snow leopard traits especially could have been an interesting choice over just white. He also really doesn't look especially good flying, his stubby little wings carrying him in what's best described as a sky waddle. I don't think the lore of him flying is bad, but the design doesn't really match up to it. Barioth as a whole also just felt very undistinguished. Barioth was almost certainly made to replace other monsters, and whilst a lot of Tri's monsters also suffer from this, many had reasonable gimmicks to shake them up a bit, like Karapako's mimicry or Yoragun's rolling. Barioth just felt like a Tesco value hybrid of Nagakuga and Tigrex, with none of the charm of either, but with Kushala's tornadoes nonsensically stuck on as well. Unlike some of the others, Barioth really felt like a replacement, rather than at least something partially new. And his very variable concept art does seem to show he was quite all over the place before becoming his finalised self. Unlike a lot of other monsters that seem to have started with a pretty clear idea. A halfway point between the brute strength of Tigrex and the agility of Nagakuga would have been a logical next step for the pseudo-wyverns. But rather than feeling like a missing link in the chain, Barioth always just felt like a poor copy. But time has been kind to Barioth, and as of Iceborne he was certainly the best fight of the three pseudo-wyverns for sure, and probably one of the best fights of Iceborne that really packed a good punch that kept a good few veterans on their toes. The speed and slight moveset shake-up really did a lot of good. Sunrise bungled this relatively quickly, by giving Barioth a discount Nagakuga tail slam, and just generally doing not much good for the pseudo-wyverns. But it's nice that Barioth was on top at least once. Barioth also has reasonable extras. Sand Barioth is okay as a subspecies, and Frostfang is the best variant or rare species or whatever that the pseudo-wyvern trio have by far, doubling down on Barioth's core features, rather than nonsensically trying to become an elder dragon, and with a pretty nice design as well that looks sufficiently old and grizzled. So I'd be lying if I said I really like Barioth, but thanks for watching. Thanks as ever to all of my patrons, but especially to the generous support of Mentos, K-Sandom, Erengar Steiny, Phenomenon, Evi11Y, and Bazugatsu Bakohatsu Bakomatsu. A link is provided in the description if you can help out, and any amount is always appreciated. Once again, Carmen Ryder Moten created the excellent images of Barioth behaviour for this video, as well as providing anatomy close-ups and model comparisons. If you're not already, make sure to follow them on their social media accounts to get new pieces as they're made. Carmen makes plenty independent of the videos too, for which links are provided in the description. Much like with previous times, the Barioth skull was created by creature design artist I Am the Kaiju King, who has provided them and many more for past videos. To check out more of his stuff, be sure to explore his Tumblr, where all his pieces with both Monster Hunter, Spec Bio and original works can be found. And be sure to check out his Patreon too if you can assist him in his creations, as well as if you're keen to get more exclusive content and early access to artworks. For your own ideas as well, he also takes commissions for sketches, skulls and skeletons of your own monsters. So be sure to follow him for more, with all relevant links for both him and Carmen in the description once again. To cover a few points from last time, Dawn Tyrant EO pointed out that green Nagakuga could be leucistic individuals, in that they lack melanin in their pelage that they normally have, giving them their black colour, with Nagakuga developing said colour as melanin also has antibacterial properties, which is very useful for an animal in humid environments, and also helps strengthen keratinous structures too. I also didn't mention much, or anything really, of Nagakuga in the Coral Highlands, and yeah, there really wasn't much to say there. Nagakuga barely feels like it fits, and putting it in a small prey environment after reclassing it as a big game hunter in the New World doesn't feel like an especially sound choice. I feel it was just lumped in there as it vaguely prefers dense habitats and looked less out of place than the other maps. But really it should have just been an Ancient Forest exclusive, if you ask me. There's comparatively little lore on it there as well, which didn't help things or make it feel any less like a padding decision. Some pointed out that Lucent also apparently only has the invisibility powers when there's moonlight, which is certainly a thing. Not that improves it hugely for me, but it's still probably worth noting. And moving on, here's the teaser for next time that I'm sure many of you have guessed already.